21st of June 1991 will be 25 years since Narasimha Rao became Prime Minister, and 24th of July 2016 will be 25 years since Dr. Manmohan Singh presented that historic budget. So in that 33 days between the 21st of June 91 and 24th of July 1991, this unlikely duo, this most unlikely and improbable jugalbandi of Mr. Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh, in my view, carried out a complete surgery of our economic policies. It was a paradigm shift. This was not a homeopathic change, it was not an incremental change. It was a dramatic change. Although the change was sold within the Congress party as change with continuity, it was more change than continuity. There was a lot of continuity, but in three areas there was dramatic change. A new industrial policy which completely dismantled the licensing policy regime, a new trade policy which dramatically started the process of reducing import barriers and promoting exports in a bigger way, and a new fiscal policy, which said that, look, government expenditure needs to be reviewed, subsidies must be for the poor, and we must learn to reduce our deficits. In fact, for the first time we started using words like fiscal deficit and revenue deficit and so on and so forth. Remember that 1990 and 91 were, very difficult days for India. Mr. Vishwanath Pratap Singh became Prime Minister. He lasted only 11 months. Then Chandrasekhar became Prime Minister. He lasted only 5 months. Mr. Rajiv Gandhi got assassinated in May. Mr. Narasimha Rao becomes Prime Minister in June 91. We have seen 4 Prime Ministers in just about 15 months. The assassination trauma, and Mr. Narasimha Rao does not get a majority. He stops at about 224, about roughly 50, 52 short of a majority, arithmetical majority. So the Congress party comes back as a minority government. This crisis has been building from the 90s onwards. But in 1990, because of the tripling of the oil price, the stagnation in our exports, the flight of capital, NRIs taking money out, political uncertainty, all these things created a crisis of unprecedented magnitude. And on the 21st of June 1991, India had less than $900 million of foreign exchange reserves. Just think back. Today we have foreign exchange reserves of $360 billion. But just imagine, 25 years ago, we had $900 million, less than $1 billion, and that was enough for about less than a week's of imports. So we were on the brink of a default. You see, the trigger was building. We had a lot of short-term borrowing in the late 80s. We borrowed when interest rates were low. But then when interest rates started increasing, our repayments started increasing. The repayments started coincided with a time in which oil prices tripled in August of 1990, when Saddam Hussein took over Kuwait, and then we had the first Gulf War. And then we had this Mandal Commission riots, in Delhi, North India, VP Singh resigning, Chandrasekhar coming as Prime Minister with 54 MPs, supported by the Congress party with 200 MPs from the outside. In no democracy will you have such a unlikely configuration. And that's what's triggered the flight of capital. The NRIs started taking money out. And then international lines of credit got choked. Because Mr. Yashwant Sinha could not present the budget in February of 1991, a fact that he has not forgotten and holds against the Congress since then. And he could not present the budget, and from then on the pressure kept building, and export stagnating, pressure on the rupee, no lending to roll over short-term loans. We had a very large proportion of short-term debt in our debt portfolio. We had borrowed short-term in the late 80s, and that's what really pushed the growth ahead. But then it came at a price, and then when the repayment time came, our economy was not strong enough. It was a liquidity problem. There was also a solvency problem, but predominantly it happened to be a liquidity problem. The BJP was advocating the gold option. Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, whom I quote in my book, intervened in Parliament on many occasions and said, why can't we use our gold reserves in order to, repay our international debt. And in fact, 40 tons of gold was mortgaged to the Bank of England, which was the first time that it took place. So there was an NRI option also that was people were advocating, saying that we should appeal to the patriotism of the NRIs and ask them to bail us out. But that was unrealistic because NRIs were taking money out of India from October of 1990 to the extent of almost $200 million a month. So the NRIs were hardly likely to come back at a time when there was a minority government. And the international confidence in India was at an all-time low. So the only option we had, which was exercised by Narasimha Rao and Dr. Manmohan Singh, was to go to the IMF. We went to the IMF. The IMF said, okay, we'll bail you out, we'll give you the security blanket, but you need to set your own house in order. So we ended up doing things that we should have done 10 years ago, but because of the compulsion, and because, I wouldn't say IMF pressure, but because of some gentle nudging, persuasion. In fact, there's a delightful R.K. Lakshman cartoon that came out, which is, at the back cover of my book, which shows Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh coming out of the IMF building, and Narasimha Rao is telling Manmohan Singh, if anyone asks any question it says, if anyone asks, say, nobody twisted our arms, we twisted them ourselves. A delightful sort of cartoon by Lakshman which captured the spirit of the times. There were many people, the left parties for example, who were advocating, why should we not default? In fact, Latin American countries have defaulted, and the default principle is based on a very simple principle that if you owe somebody $5,000, you should be worried, and if you owe somebody $5 billion, he should be worried, right? So we owe the world some billions of dollars, so they should be worried. Why should we, take the headache of repayment? Well, the default option was I don't think was seriously considered at that point of time, because Dr. Manmohan Singh ruled it out. Dr. Manmohan Singh kept saying that, we have always repaid on time, we have been prudent in our international repayment obligation. In any case, nobody was willing to lend to India. I mean, that was, the case in June 1991. Well, the complete dismantling of the licensing system was the biggest reform, and it almost didn't happen, It went back and forth, it went to the cabinet once, then it came back, it had to be redone. I wrote a long preamble, which said that this is actually change with continuity, and then it got sold. That was the biggest. The complete dismantling of the licensing system was number one. The opening up to foreign investment. It started in 91. That was very, very significant. Very significant. Opening up to foreign investment. The entire trade policy cleanup, reducing import duties. We used to have peak rates of 100%, 150%. Peak rates, now the average trade weighted average rate, less than, is around 15 to 20%. So the reduction in import duties, plus complete cleanup of the export incentive regime, export incentive structure, making it easier for companies to import and making it easier for companies to export. That's a third cleanup. Then we started the tax reform. Remember that in the early 90s, indirect taxes provided the bulk of the revenues of the government, and today over 50% of the revenues come from direct taxes, and that's the way it should be, because direct taxes are more progressive, indirect taxes are regressive, and that process started, and of course GST will be the culmination of that process, which we will see. Mr. Narasimha Rao was just not prepared to consider devaluation. But I think Dr. Manmohan Singh and Dr. Rangarajan, who was the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank, convinced Mr. Narasimha Rao that there is no option to devaluation. And I had a 1-hour discussion with, I was then officer on special duty to Mr. Narasimha Rao. He called me to Hyderabad house, and after an iftar dinner, he asked me, take me through the benefits of one-step devaluation versus two-step devaluation. So I explained to him, took a piece of paper, said what happens when you do a one-step devaluation. Why do you need a two-step devaluation? Because you need to test the market. The first step tests the market, it tests the political reaction, and then you do a two-step devaluation. He says, Manmohan is putting pressure on me to have a two-step devaluation. I said, sir, he is the best judge. I remember my telling him that he is the best judge, and I think you should follow his advice. But Mr. Narasimha Rao gave the go-ahead to Dr. Manmohan Singh and Dr. Rangarajan sometime on the 28th or 29th of June of 1991. The 1st of July was the first step devaluation that happened, and I think the 4th of July you had the second step devaluation, which almost didn't happen. Because on the morning of the devaluation, Mr. Narasimha Rao called up Dr. Manmohan Singh and told him to stop the devaluation. Because, there was a lot of negative press also coming from the left, lobbies and for the left parties. And even the BJP was not particularly supportive of the devaluation. Because, everybody thought in India, this is pride. It's not a prize. That's why I said, the exchange rate should be seen as a price. But it's seen as a pride, So, Mr. Narasimha Rao tried to stop it, but by then, Dr. Manmohan Singh and Dr. Rangarajan had actually announced the second devaluation, and it happened. And I think, Mr. Narasimha Rao never used the word devaluation. He would keep using the word adjustment in the exchange rate. The exchange rate has been adjusted. He was also very careful of not, because devaluation had this, for his generation, devaluation meant what happened in June of 1966 and thereafter, and that led to one of the reasons why Kamaraj and Indira Gandhi fell out was the devaluation episode.